There are reports of Russian officials walking back nuclear threats that were made by Russian President Vladimir Putin. This comes after President Biden addressed these threats earlier this week during his speech at the UN General Assembly. He defended Ukrainian people and asked members of the United Nations to support them. And everybody joining us now to discuss all of this is former U.S. ambassador to NATO and also former special representative for Ukraine, Kurt Volker. Kurt, you know, it was pretty interesting because first, I just want to turn to Putin's nuclear threats because it's really serious when we hear his rhetoric. Take a listen first off.
In its aggressive anti-Russian policy, the West has crossed every line. We hear constant threats against our country and our people. I want to remind those who allow themselves such statements about Russia that our country also has a variety of weapons of destruction, and in some areas, even more modern than those in NATO countries. And if the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will, without question, use all the means at our disposal to protect Russia and our people. This is not a bluff.
What is your reaction to this?
Well, many things. So first off, he's reacting out of a position of weakness here. His forces have attacked Ukraine. They are losing in the battles there. They've been pushed back. And so he's grasping for what tools he still has in the toolbox to throw out there. Second, even with that nuclear threat, he was linking it to threats to Russia's territorial integrity. And of course, nobody is threatening Russia. No one is attacking Russia. No one is killing Russian civilians. So he is linking it to something that is not happening. And thirdly, the way he was talking about people making threats against Russia or the Russian people, simply not true. And it's a reflection of the kind of isolation and bubble that he is in, that he is saying these things and trying to convince the Russian people that somehow Russia is under threat, which is not the case.
Well, speaking of some big news that's just coming in, and we're just seeing this here, Ambassador Volker, that the Chinese president, there are rumors that potentially, but a number of people are reporting it, I'm watching it right now, that the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, may be under some sort of house arrest. This is just coming into us. What's your reaction to this, if indeed this is the case? There are a couple reports on it here.
That would be very surprising to hear. I think he has been able to rule China with a great deal of control. And for something like that to happen would be truly extraordinary. So we just have to wait and see what more reports we get.
Yeah, there's some reports, and it's just coming into me here, too, a little bit more. This is just breaking as we're seeing it here. Some rumors of some sort of potential military coup, but then they're saying that it's conflicting reports coming in. Obviously, lots of stuff coming in. China's certainly on the microscope these days, especially vis-a-vis Taiwan. Obviously, a very tense situation. What are your thoughts here, too, just as, you know, the mixed signals we're getting, but also China just came in a little bit ago, too. There's so much stuff coming into us here, Kurt, but something that China also was sending a message that basically was very unhappy also with the rhetoric coming from the U.S. on Taiwan. We know that that's been the case, sort of different reports coming in fast and furious here.
Right. Well, many different things about this, too. First off, you're reminding me of my time in the State Department, where we always used to tell ourselves first reports are always wrong. So we have to wait and see what more emerges here before we really know what's going on. Secondly, I think if you look at Chinese interests, which is the way China looks at things, they're not driven by Russia's interests. China sees itself as a rising, growing power, not a weakening power. They definitely want to get Taiwan back, but they also believe the time is on their side. As to what's happening with President Xi, we have to wait and see what we learn.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, let's get back also, if we could, to a bit of President Biden's speech as we're waiting to see if there's any more information on this. You know, President Biden, during his 60 Minutes interview last week, he spoke about protecting the democratically governed island of Taiwan from Chinese aggression. And additionally, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken told us that told his Chinese counterpart on Friday that the maintenance of peace and stability over Taiwan was vitally important. Now, as a result, China, as I mentioned, has now accused the U.S. of sending very wrong, dangerous signals on Taiwan. How do you read sort of all this new information coming in and sort of the backdoor channels that seem to be happening?
Yeah, well, China cannot be surprised by the language coming from the United States about Taiwan. We have stood by both a one China policy, but also Taiwan's rights and the insistence that there be no violence concerning Taiwan. And that is a very consistent message from the U.S. Also, in terms of freedom of navigation and regional security, very consistent as well. So they sometimes react to the rhetoric. They reacted to Nancy Pelosi's visit when she went earlier this year, but this is certainly no surprise to them. And as I said earlier, China does see itself as a rising power. They do see the U.S. in some decline, and they do feel that they have time.
Absolutely. Well, Ambassador Kurt Volker, thank you very much. And also thank you to reacting to this news that's coming in here, too. We always love having you here on the show and so appreciate your input. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, very, very much. And
no crooked establishment.
None of that twisting the
truth.
No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax.
Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think.
They let
me decide.
Newsmax.
real news
For real people.